investigation into a fatal car crash at the Delaware Nation.
We have to wait and see what justice does in the wake of the additional information that is provided.
A House of Commons committee debates an opposition motion that would allow Jody Wilson-Raybould to speak more freely.
Rebuild people's lives.
And homeless people on Vancouver Island finally have a resource to help get them off the streets and into a home of their own. Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Dennis Ward. Lawyers for the man charged with second-degree murder in the death of Barbara Kentner want the charge dropped to manslaughter or aggravated assault. Braden Bushby was first charged with aggravated assault after he allegedly threw a trailer hitch out the window of a moving vehicle, striking Kentner as she walked down the street 2 years ago. She died 6 months later, and Bushby was charged with second-degree murder. In January, an Ontario Superior Court judge ruled there was enough evidence for Bushby to stand trial. His lawyers say otherwise and will argue that the judge erred in making Bushby face a second-degree murder trial. The case will be heard on May 21st in Thunder Bay. A publication ban remains in effect. The controversy around the SNC-Lavalin affair continues to dominate headlines in Ottawa. Today, the House of Commons Ethics Committee voted on an opposition motion that would allow Jody Wilson-Raybould to testify further. It also included a note to have former Treasury Board President Jane Philpott speak as well. APTN's Todd Lamoran reports on what was a foregone conclusion.
Yes, you're good.
Wait.
By a vote of 6-3, the Liberal majority quashed the opposition motion.
So the motion is defeated.
It brought the usual response from Conservatives.
Well, the cover-up continues. Donc, la camouflage continue. Liberals had a chance to put their votes where their mouths were, and instead they decided to vote for another cover-up.
Conservative Peter Kent wanted the committee to ask Prime Minister Trudeau to broaden a waiver. It would allow Jody Wilson-Raybould to testify about events she couldn't at the Justice Committee last month, and allow Jane Philpott to also testify. Poilievre used Liberal comments in the media to press his point, especially MP Judy Sgro's claim that Wilson-Raybould and Philpott need to put up or shut up about the issue.
So, we could let them do that. We could let them put up their testimony before us in this committee. If Liberals, backbenchers, and Liberal ministers who are going out and telling the media that they just want Wilson-Raybould and Philpott to just say what they got to say, well, let's invite them here to say it.
However, Liberal Nathaniel Erskine-Smith says asking them to this committee is premature. He says he wants to wait until Wilson-Raybould provides additional material, emails and transcripts of conversations to the Justice Committee.
One, I think this is appropriately before Justice, and we ought to wait and see what Justice does in the wake of the additional information that is provided.
NDP MP Tracy Ramsey is Vice Chair of the Justice Committee and claims Liberals on that committee will not revisit the issue.
So, you know, anyone who thinks that something is going to happen at the Justice Committee, I want to be clear, as Vice Chair of the Justice Committee, there is no ongoing study. There is no indication from Liberal members that they will allow any further conversation.
Erskine-Smith appeared to break from his colleagues after the committee meeting, saying if Wilson-Raybould's new evidence warrants it, the Prime Minister should let her and Philpott speak.
If still to get at the truth, there is additional information that Ms. Wilson-Raybould and Ms. Philpott need to provide that they are unable to provide because of the confines of the existing waiver, then yes, I think to get at the truth, there should be a broadening of that waiver.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh says the committee's outcome is another reason for an NDP initiative of an independent public inquiry into the SNC-Lavalin scandal. Todd Lamoran, APTN National News, Ottawa.
We're adjourned. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Here's how to continue the conversation. Send your emails to news@aptn.ca. Find us online at aptnnews.ca and on youtube.com/aptnnews. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest Indigenous news. Well, we're going to step aside for a quick break, but stick around. There's more to come. Here's a look at Wednesday's weather forecast starting on the East Coast. +6 and sunny skies for Fredericton. +4 under the sun for Halifax. -10 in Nain. -8 for Cartwright. 7 below for Happy Valley Goose Bay. +6 in Montreal. 5 above for Saguenay and Val-d'Or. 10 above in Sarnia. 9 in London. In Northern Ontario, +6 for Thunder Bay. 6 above with showers in Sioux Lookout. -12 with snow for Churchill. +1 in snow in Norway House. +9 with showers for Winnipeg. 8 above in Gimli and Brandon. +6 with some snow for Regina. +7 and snow in Swift Current. -5 in Uranium City, snow, and -6 for Stony Rapids. Welcome back. There's a new housing project in Port Alberni on Vancouver Island that is helping people move from homelessness and changing lives. APTN's Lori Hamlin has that story.
This is the first time Bear has ever lived alone in his 55 years. Bear just moved into a brand new supportive housing unit in Port Alberni.
It's sad I have to be here. Happy that I am here.
Bear grew up in childcare in East Vancouver and ended up on the streets in his teens. He has struggled with addiction all his life, but for the last 20 years, he's also been helping others struggling with addiction and homelessness.
It's funny, I spent 20 years on the streets and 20 years developing programs for people on the streets.
But now Bear's been given a second chance at Our Home.
Well, it rebuilds people's lives.
Wes Hewitt is one of the creators behind the Our Home project, which is now just up and running. Our Home takes people in from as far south as Dididat to as far north on the west coast of the island as Kayukit. Hewitt says people on the island are struggling to find affordable housing and services just like the rest of the province.
Our Home was conceived actually in 2010, and it's got 30 supportive housing units, which are independent suites for some of our clients to live on in the second floor. And on the main floor is support services, and we still operate a shelter facility out of here.
Although the project began in 2010, construction took only a year and $7.5 million.
This building was funded through the Rapid Response to Homelessness with BC Housing and a partnership with the Vancouver Island Health Authority, the Port Alberni Shelter Society, and the City of Port Alberni.
Residents are chosen based on an application process using a vulnerability assessment. Rent is $375 per month, and people can stay as long as they need to. Bear's thankful he made it in, but says there are still many more people on the island that need help.
They need more programs like this anywhere.
Lori Hamlin, APTN National News, Port Alberni.
Great sounding program. In Nova Scotia, a natural gas company won a legal battle last week to have water protectors ordered off their property. But the occupation is not over, and now more protectors are arriving. Angel Moore has that story.
Alton Gas says the protectors are trespassing and preventing access to the work site. The protectors say the land is unceded territory.
As ONU, to be told what to do by a corporation that don't even belong here in the first place. So, no, I'm not leaving.
Community members are opposed to the Alton Gas storage project, which means carving out salt caverns and dumping the salty brine into the Sabaganagati River. A judge granted a temporary injunction on the basis that the water protectors were trespassing and blocking access to the company's work site. It is in effect until a permanent injunction is decided in court. The grandmothers and elders have asked the women to stay at the treaty camp, which is on Alton Gas's property at the entrance of the work site.
It's always been matriarchal, and when our grandmothers and our elders tell us what to do, what the next steps are, that's who we follow, that's who we are guided by.
2 of the women are at the camp in shifts, and there's always someone on site.
We're here to protect her. We're always going to be here. We're always going to be here to protect. We're protecting for the unborn, for the animals, our medicines,
Madonna Bernard and Paula Isaac say they are protecting the past and the future of the Sabaganagati River. Alton Gas wants to store natural gas underground along the river and pump the salty brine into the water, and the protesters fear environmental damage.
We're protecting the river from these corporations coming in and doing what they want to do. They want to throw all that salt brine into the river. Where the bass spawn, where all the fish spawn here.
And also for the animals too. It's not just for the people. It's for the animals and the balance of life.
People here say by protecting the river, they're also defending their treaty rights.
I'm going to sit here until the grandmothers tell me otherwise. There's nothing legal that the RCMP can do to enforce them taking us out of here, because everything we do is legal and justifiable in our sovereign laws, in our treaty laws.
Our ancestors signed those treaties for a reason, and it's, you know, that's why I'm standing with it. I'm standing my ground with it.
Next week in court, a date will be chosen for a hearing for another injunction, a permanent injunction. Angel Moore, APTN National News, near the Sabaganagati River.
Tonight we're happy to introduce you to the newest member of APTN National News. But for some, she is not a new face, but a returning one. Once a reporter here in Winnipeg, she will now be working out of our Saskatoon Bureau. Priscilla, good to see you and welcome back. You left news for a little while, but what made you want to jump back into it?
I wanted to join the best team here in North America, APTN National News.
That's a good plug for us. What are some of the stories you're looking forward to telling?
Well, definitely profile stories in the community of Saskatoon as well as across Saskatchewan. I'd like to travel up north. I'd like to travel down south. So if anybody wants to pitch stories, they're always welcome to.
And it is a lot of territory to cover. Of course, there are a lot of stories happening in Saskatchewan with our people. What's the best way that people can reach out to you?
Well, on Twitter, they can get a hold of me at PriscillaWolf11, as well as my email, pwolf@aptn.ca.
Well, Priscilla, we welcome you back. It's good to see you back, and look forward to the stories coming out of Saskatchewan.
Thanks, Dennis.
Sunday night's national television broadcast of an NHL game in Cree was a major milestone. But was it the first? That and the answer to that question and much more coming up after the break. Here's the rest of Wednesday's weather forecast, picking back up in northern Alberta. +6 under sunny skies for high level. +10 with showers in Medicine Hat. 10 above and sunny for Lethbridge. +15 for Tofino, sunny skies, and 13 for Vancouver. +10 under the sun for Fort Nelson and Smithers. In Yukon, +3 with snow for Old Crow. 10 above in Whitehorse. +12 for Fort Liard and Trout Lake, -7 in Yellowknife, -16 and snow for Sax Harbor, 6 below in Paulatuck, -18 in Repulse Bay and Whale Cove, 24 below for Cambridge Bay, -26 in Resolute, 19 below in Clyde River. Welcome back. Ontario's police watchdog agency has concluded its investigation into a controversial OPP investigation of a fatal crash on the Delaware Nation. The conclusion? The police did nothing wrong, and the case is now closed. But as Melissa Ridgen explains, investigators for the watchdog overlooked the same key witnesses as police originally did. And there's confusion as to who even investigated the deadly crash.
Bailey Jacobs was killed 2 days shy of her 17th birthday. Her half-brother Tanner White-Eye was left a paraplegic. Her best friend Jody suffered minor physical injuries, but still deals with the emotional trauma. They'd been walking on a narrow, unlit road at 1:40 a.m. in November 2019 when they were hit by a car hard enough to launch 350-pound Bailey to her death, dozens of meters away. It knocked Jody into the ditch, and it embedded Tanner in the windshield, where he was dragged for over 100 meters before the car stopped. The driver, Braden Hopkins, he's a world away living out his hockey dreams in Sweden. He was never charged. The Ontario Provincial Police said there was no evidence a crime had been committed, and a new report from the Office of the Independent Police Review Director agrees. The report says there is insufficient evidence to establish misconduct occurred, and all allegations of shoddy police work are, quote, unsubstantiated. The report went on to say the Moraviantown Police, a 3-police officer First Nations force, actually led the investigation and the OPP simply assisted. No matter, the watchdog agency wrote, the OIPRD does not have jurisdiction to investigate the actions of the Moraviantown Police. The trouble with that is APTN obtained the police report from the OPP. It contains notes and reports only from OPP officers. There's nothing in here from Moraviantown officers. And when APTN was in the community trying to get to the bottom of it, the First Nations police told us it was the other way around, that the OPP was in charge.
Since the OPP administrates us and do circumstances,
yeah,
that I'm not allowed to comment on any of the investigation or anything that's
so we can't interview you about this?
No.
APTN retained a longtime traffic investigator to go over the investigation in the January 2017 APTN Investigates episode, The Crash.
It's just wholly lacking in any kind of detail.
So if somebody handed you a report like this as a supervisor, what would your response be?
I would be shocked. I would probably send them straight back to the scene to continue with the investigation. But I would be somewhat incredulous that they believed that was a proper and thorough investigation.
One major problem with both the OPP investigation and the police watchdogs is why weren't witnesses on the scene interviewed? APTN Investigates found Tracy and Rhonda White-Eye, both of whom were among the first on the scene, and they said that police seemed to be ignoring the driver. Tracy, an addictions worker, spent several minutes consoling the driver, hugging him, and doing breathing exercises with him, face to face. She believes she has information that would have been relevant had the police bothered to take her name in a statement. Rhonda White-Eye believes that too, had she been asked. I spoke with Rhonda. She said that she feels this is, quote, absolutely not a fair or complete investigation. She thinks that it just rubber stamped the OPP investigation, which had a lot of unanswered questions in it. She feels that both the OPP and the Office of the Independent Police Review Director, quote, to them this is just a bunch of First Nations kids and nobody really gives a shit. I also spoke with Alma Jacobs, that's Bailey Jacobs' grandmother. She said that she's given up hope and she will just have to find a new way to move on now that this last attempt at finding justice has come to a final halt. Melissa Ridgen, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Well, if that story caught your attention, you can watch the entire episode of The Crash on APTN News' YouTube page. He may not be able to leap tall buildings in a single bound, but to many, the Indigenous hip-hop performer Superman is a real superhero. As CTV Regina's Kristen Ashkate tells us, the Montana artist is traveling to schools promoting a life without drugs or alcohol.
You want to do something great? Go for it. Nobody can stop me.
When Christian Parrish takes the gun, aka Superman, is on stage, he gets everyone's attention. Fusing his Indigenous culture and his love for hip-hop.
Love to share culture, love to share the story about the dances and the values that come along with that, and also living a positive life, a drug and alcohol-free life.
For the last 15 years, Superman has been traveling across North America, sharing the important message of following your dreams and living a drug and alcohol-free life.
Knowing that they have the power, they have the power as Indigenous people, as human beings, to create their own realities in this life.
Originally from Crow Agency, Montana, he also talks about growing up with his parents who struggled with alcoholism and how he was eventually taken by social services.
As a little kid, I learned what alcohol and drugs does to the people you love the most. It breaks their hearts. Breaks the hearts of the people that you love the most. But they took us, we went back to Crow, life was good, they were sober, they had jobs, things like that. I was happy to be home. And that lasted maybe for about 3 months. 3 months, it went back into that cycle of addiction.
At 10 years old, his father lost his life, and his mother made the decision to put down the bottle for good.
She said, I'm done. I'm never touching another drop of alcohol ever again. And she never did. She raised me and my brother, raised me to be the man that I am today. She's awesome. She's still alive today. Give her a round of applause, my mom. Now here you go.
Now, Superman is an award-winning hip-hop artist and producer, working alongside Taboo from the Black Eyed Peas, and recently winning an MTV Music Award for the song Stand Up Standing Rock, a song that raises awareness about Indigenous resistance to the Dakota Access Pipeline.
Get on your feet for Standing Rock, and we'll show you how strong we could be when we unify. To all my native people, recognize yourself, keep your head.
Just to be nominated was a huge blessing, and so when we ended up winning the award, that was like through the roof, because I don't think any Native groups have ever been in that realm, in LA at the VMAs, and actually winning the award.
A really cool guy, a really cool rapper, a beatboxer. The second performance was actually pretty good. I liked it. More than the first one, I would say.
How he was going through rough times when he was younger.
When he was dancing, that was really cool.
I like when he played the prayer loop song.
Say respect, honor, kindness, love. Now turn to your neighbor, give him a hug, and say, I'm here for you.
From here, Christian Parrish Takes the Gun, aka Superman, will continue his tour across North America, including making a stop in Prince Albert, sharing his positive message to the youth.
Cool, some lucky kids to get to see him. Sunday night's live television broadcast of an NHL game in Plains Cree on APTN was a historic night. But for some, it's not the first time they've heard an NHL game called in Cree. In 1988, now Member of Parliament Romeo Saganash, along with Sid Otterise and Ernest Webb, called a game between the Montreal Canadiens and the Quebec Nordiques for a radio broadcast live on CBC North. Saganash, who was in law school at the time and working part-time for CBC North, said it took 6 months to prepare for the game. That included sitting down with Cree elders to come up with Cree words for things like puck and referee that just did not exist. Saganash says he can't even remember who won the game, but says it was a proud moment for him and Cree people.
What was fun, because it was on radio, a live radio broadcast, but everybody in the Cree communities back in Quebec watched the game on TV without the sound and put on the radio sound. So they heard the play-by-play from the radio and watched it on TV, so it was a lot of fun.
Hopefully there's much more to come. Well, that is your APTN National News for this Tuesday. You can always find much more over on our website, aptnnews.ca. We want to wish good luck to our colleagues at APTN Investigates who are up for an award at the Canadian Screen Awards tonight. Now stick around. The Laughing Drum with Tim Fontaine is just minutes away. I'm Dennis Ward. Have a great night.